And we are off, and away we go. And welcome to your Nooner with me, Dave LaMont. Thank you. I've got a packed program today with two guests, back-to-back Jack, and two great ones, too. And I'm going to get right into it because this man has got things to do and people to do and all sorts of things. And that, of course, means it's time for Rob Calvert to make an appearance again. How you doing, buddy?
I'm phenomenal. Even better now that I have my vibrating Mr. Potato Head.
Now, is that an anatomically correct potato head?
It doesn't really matter when it vibrates.
That's true. And what you do with that in the privacy of your own home there in the heartland of the United States is strictly up to you.
That is why God made the internet.
He did. Yes, there's some good usages there.
How are you?
Said some stories to me, and the one you didn't talk about, we didn't, because we talked yesterday for a little bit. We had talked about a business story that Darren Rovell had talked about. We talked a bit about the basketball league that's going to be funded by some NBA players. But the story that we didn't discuss is the one that I'm most interested in because I couldn't believe the results. And that is
You're talking about the drunkest fans in baseball.
No, not even that.
Okay.
No, the angriest sports fans on Twitter is the one that I could not believe. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Because if I threw that out there right now, if I threw that out there right now, and if I didn't have the answer in my hand, I would never have put this group in the top 5.
Well, and you know it's legit because it came from, it's sourced from a gambling site, onlinegambling.com. And you'd think these guys and ladies are the most relaxed, chill people. Yeah. But golfer rage is a real thing. And when you have something to be angry about and vent about, of course, you go to Twitter. And far and away, you saw the percentages, right?
I'm blown away by it. 42%, according to Online Gambling, the top 10, the golf is number 1. And I know there have been stories about people who have phoned TV trucks and people who have made, helped on making rulings that have screwed golfers over left and right. Unfortunately, I think that's come to a halt. But what are they complaining about? That's what I don't understand.
Well, first off, these are people who are the angriest on Twitter. So that needs to be, so it's not like, they're rating people wrapping their club around a tree. But that being said, the reason Twitter exists is to show off your boobs and bitch about things. And,
which I've done both.
Whether it's TV coverage because there's too much tiger, or there's TV coverage because there's not enough tiger, or somebody is yelling in the background, or somebody's cheating, or someone's overrating, the golfers bitch the most.
That really surprised me because I'm a golfer, just a very average golfer at best.
But you're also a very angry man.
That's true, but I don't go to Twitter for that. I don't think. Now you got me thinking if I've ever rage tweeted golf, and I don't think I have. But that one really surprised me. So you go to the list and you think, well, it's got to be football. Well, it sort of is if you call it football because soccer was number 2. Now that I'm beginning to believe because in the United States with the Premier League and some of the other leagues that have caught a lot of television time, it's getting much more exposure than it used to. And soccer fans were second.
Oh, they're the most passionate fans out there. I don't care what your sport is. Nothing compared to soccer fans.
Yeah, I get the frustration. Most of it is probably directed to games that are being played overseas too. Not even so much what happens in the U.S. Yes,
well, Twitter is an international forum. So.
Right. And so and I'm sure the gambling folks took that into consideration. So that number, they were 28%. Yeah, but that's not without reading glasses. How about that?
Let me tell you the most interesting thing about the whole study is they also hooked 40 fans up and monitored them while they were watching sporting events. Of course, NFL, the players that got hearts racing most, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, NBA, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, they didn't even bother doing heart monitor for baseball. And do you know why that is? Because people fell asleep waiting for someone to throw the ball. So they didn't even bother.
You are correct, sir. You know what? The biggest shock on here? Matt Kuchar and Rory Sabatini. What the hell tournament were they watching when they hooked those guys up?
Well, I think those heart rates went up because that was the exact moment they got woken up from their naps.
Wow.
Because that's why the commentators on television golf whisper, so they don't wake up anybody watching.
I couldn't believe that, because of all you think that Tiger or Phil Mickelson or Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, DeChambeau, all the down the line, Matt Kuchar can't raise his own heart rate, and Sabatini is only marginally annoying when he's in a team competition. But other than that, so what? And tennis was Andy Murray and Rafael Nadal, no Federer, but Federer is pretty chill. He doesn't have any kind of bad reputation or anything. So, I don't know. The whole thing, just to give everybody the rest of the top 10 list: golf, soccer, baseball was number 3, sir.
Yep.
And
so all of those tweeters were from Philadelphia.
Well, that's no doubt about that. The NFL was 4th, which would have been my first choice. Then boxing. Then this is clearly overseas, because number 5 was Formula 1, ice hockey, and this was tied with darts.
Yeah. All ranked up there together.
Let me say that again. Darts. Then cycling. Now, this is international, because the NBA is 8. This was just the United States, because the NBA was tied with rugby. And then tennis, and of course 10th, because the game that I, as a semi-professional sportscaster who has studied sports since he was barely able to walk, I still have never grasped cricket.
I was vacationing in Bali one time, and me and my cousin were sitting in a bar drinking some sort of alcohol that also was mixed with mushrooms, but we won't get into that. And these two guys walking up, the cricket matches were on the telly, and
yes.
They walked up to us and looked at us. He goes, "What's going on? What's the score?" And I literally sat there and acted like I didn't speak English, because I had no idea what to tell him. So I thought it was easier just to go, Guten Dastig.
Is a Family Guy did a takeoff, just a little flashback on, welcome to the cricket matches. We have guys wearing helmets who look like they shouldn't be wearing helmets, and guys not wearing helmets that look like they should be wearing helmets. And there it goes. It's out of the park. What does it mean? I don't know, but it's what we do.
Exactly. I don't get it, but that's also, speaking of interesting golfers, you were talking about specific golfers. Bubba Wallace had an interesting take on Johnny Football.
Bubba Watson. Bubba Wallace.
I'm sorry, Bubba Wallace.
Yeah. Bubba Watson.
Bubba Watson had an interesting tape. I don't know. Did you hear Johnny Manziel's going to dedicate the next 12 years to becoming a professional golfer?
Well, he couldn't dedicate 12 minutes to being a pro football player, so we'll see how this goes.
So Bubba Watson says, well, I'm going to dedicate the next 12 years to being a professional quarterback. So
yeah, there you go. It
might work out exactly the same.
Exactly right. No, it's listen, Johnny Manziel, look, I have no ill bones against him. I know the people in Cleveland probably hate his guts, but he tried, he failed. I don't know how hard he tried, but he definitely failed. And
he partied a lot.
Yeah, he did. He lived downtown in Cleveland, and while that is not party central, there are places you can get into trouble down there. And he did. He did. Yep. He found them all. He even probably spent time at the Winking Lizard downtown,
which actually is also a common venereal disease in Cleveland.
It is. And by the way, great sports bar, the Winking Lizard in downtown Cleveland. If you're ever there, don't tell them I said you, because they don't know who I am. But it's Lent right now.
A ringing endorsement.
How about that? But here's the best part. And I know where living you were just outside pierogi country, but it's Lent. And with all the folks who are dropping meat, it's time to load up on pierogis. And at the Winking Lizard, they serve some mean-ass pierogis. So remember that.
I hope you get some free ones when you go next time you visit.
I was going, when my kid was playing at Western Michigan, I went to the tournament, the MAC tournament there in Cleveland, stayed with my friend. And, it was awesome. And Winking Lizard, pierogis, please. There's not much more I need to be happy than pierogis, quite honestly. All right, so the other biggie that we were talking about yesterday, and this really intrigues me, and I can see the good and the bad, is this basketball league, professional basketball league for teenagers, that is being funded by Carmelo Anthony and Kevin Durant, among others. And the concept of this, I guess, is to get them ready for the pros and skip that step that goes from high school to college. And some guys have already made that skip, but it's rare. Not many can do it. And I was surprised at how few players are going to be involved in this thing. It's just 30 people.
Well, the sports brand Overtime is the company that's putting it together. And, you got Aaron Ryan, who former NBA executive. You've got Brandon Williams, who not only played, but also was in front office guy for the 76ers. So this is a league that not only gives 16 to 18-year-old players an opportunity other than college in the NCAA, but it also gives them real world experience and the opportunity to profit from their own, from their skill set. And assuming that this takes off, which, that's a big if, because you can promise the world, but if it doesn't work out, you know what? You file bankruptcy, the world gets screwed. So what they want to do is promise 30 players a minimum salary of $100,000. If the players don't go to the NBA afterwards, they'll give them another $100,000 so that they can go to college and get an education. In addition, they're able to have revenue sharing and stock options within the league. They're able to have full health care and disability coverage. They're able to sell their likenesses and have bonuses. They can profit from their image and their trading cards and the video games. They can sign with sneaker companies, and they can learn how to control their own brand, which is something they technically, how strictly forbidden is even controlling your own brand in the college game.
No, you're right about that. And that's one of the things I like about this. My concerns about it is if you're 16, you go in there and you discover, woo, I am not ready for this. Can that kid go to college and get ready by playing against college competition? Or will the NCAA jump in and go, oh, got paid for playing ball, did you? As Alex Trebek would say, no, sorry. That's something I didn't see addressed in the story yet. So, and I don't think the NCAA said anything about this because this thing hasn't taken off. I think they're going to wait to see if this takes off. It's supposed to start in September. They're going to have to cut some kind of a TV or streaming deal, I think, to get attention. And I don't know how they're going to do it with just 30 kids. In other words, how many people on it? If you're going to actually do a league, then there's so many expenses. Now, look, just between the two of them, Durant and Anthony can fund a lot of this. You mentioned there are plenty of other people, and this Overtime outfit is probably in pretty good shape financially. But to me, there's a lot of issues here that I just mentioned. And I just wonder about, how do they find these kids?
Delightful.
Yeah. I mean.
Well, I think you're also hoping for the lightning in the bottle factor that somewhere between the 16 and 18-year-olds, the next LeBron James, Michael Jordan, or Zion Williamson will pop out of there. And all of a sudden, that's going to be your big draw. And that kid's going to also know that he's the big draw and he's going to profit from it. And hopefully they can find a way to keep their egos in check as they become wealthier and wealthier at an age where no kid is that wealthy unless they're born into it.
Well, unless they're gamers. Some of those guys are doing pretty damn well. Now, it's also, they're also going to get education while they're under the auspices of this league. It's not like they're just going to be 20 hours a day playing basketball. So there's some admirable traits to this. I'm a little skeptical, not just because it's my nature, but I'm just a little skeptical about if a kid at 18, well, I guess if you played 2 years at this level, and then you should be ready for the pros. And you mentioned LeBron and these guys. Some of these guys are ready when they're 17, 18 years old, and they can skip this step, but not the 16-year-old. Physically, there's no way that a kid could handle the demands of what goes on in the NBA. There's no possible way.
This is real-world training for whatever it is they're eventually going to face. Because you got to think of the, what's the percentage of college kids that go into the NBA?
Oh, it's tiny. I don't have the number, but it's tiny.
If this succeeds, what are the percentage of the 30 that are going to go into the NBA?
Tiny. I believe.
I think if they're going to invest, I think the percentage in this is going to be higher because they're going to invest in the kids.
Well, the other thing is you can have a Durant and Anthony behind you making connections, talking to people they know in the league and go, hey, I got a kid playing for this league, my league. He's really going to be good. He's worth signing as a free agent but then you're going to end up getting stashed in the G League, which you can go back and forth. That's where I think most of these guys are going to wind up.
Well,
at
and the
least in the
TV
beginning.
coverage is going to be a big deal also because, I mean, if you're going to college, you're going to go to a major school where you're going to be on TV a lot, and that's where the teams are going to see you. Yes, the NBA is going to have scouts combing this league, but some kids are going to say, I'm going to go to Duke because they're on TV every single day on a mass audience, and I'm going to be seen.
Yeah, but a lot of the really good ones are only there for a year. We've seen that. Kentucky, although they're struggling this year mightily as Kentucky, and Duke is down. But for the most part, those have probably been, at least off the top of my head, the two leading schools in the so-called one and done. The thing I'm a little concerned about is this will hurt the college game a bit. But frankly, one and dones have hurt the college game a lot. I understand.
Here are the two things that I like about this. Number one, it's going to force, it's all caveat with if this is successful, it's going to force the NCAA to get out of the dark ages and move into the modern era. And number two, what I like is the full healthcare disability coverage, and there's supposedly financial protection if there's an injury that hinders them from going into the pro game, which you don't get in college. Once you get the injury, they'll take care of you with the medical.
No.
If you're scholarship.
No, you don't.
No, they don't. Not even if you're scholarship.
Right.
The team doesn't take care of you.
No, they'll take care of you. They'll take care of you. Absolutely.
Okay, but
the
financial
you're taking care
protection afterwards. Yeah.
And you can't let. Well, no. That you are on your own, because then if you are ruined from playing ball, then you better damn well get your degree and try to go. Or occasionally you might get to stick around and become a coach and go down that path if you really love the game. That has happened a few times where guys get hurt and they go, well, I want to be around the game. But that starts them out financially at poverty level or below. So that's the downside with that, besides the loss of being able to play the game you hopefully love. So
I thought that was interesting too. I was a fan of the booziest baseball fans.
That's where I was going next, because and you know what? I was surprised. Not at number one, the White Sox. It is Chicago after all.
But the Cubs are
in the middle
on the list.
Yeah, they're smack in the middle, just above the way they spelled Miami Marlins with an extra I. The Miami Marlins might have been a little buzzed themselves. But the Braves at number 2, now that caught me off guard.
Well, the stadium's always full, so you gotta have the camaraderie there. And
I guess, I mean, your Reds 3rd, Cleveland 4.
Neither one of those two surprised me.
Well, the Padres caught me off guard at 5. The Rockies, I just figured they were stoned out there, so they don't even need to drink beer.
You know what shocked me? Look at the very bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Now, I lived in Philadelphia for 9.5 years. I can assure you, everyone in that stadium, even the toddlers, are drinking more than 2.4 beers a game. I can promise you that's the fact.
I did go to a game there a couple of years ago and did see some kids staggering around a little bit. So, yeah, I get your point. Yeah,
I'm one that thinks, listen, the obnoxious Philly fan absolutely deserves the bad press that they get. But for the most part, they're just really loud, boisterous, passionate fans. They know their sports.
They do.
Now, there was a guy when I lived out there we called Pukemon that got completely loaded, obnoxious. The guy in front of him said, "Hey, can you back down? My kids are right here." The guy decided to retort by putting his finger in his throat and puking all over the guy and the kid without realizing that the guy was an undercover cop. See, that's the guy who deserves the bad press. Get rid of they booed Santa Claus stuff. That's boring. Who cares? But
that's old
stuff. Those are the Philly fans that deserve all the bad press that they get. But they're just passionate fans. But you know what? They love their beer, and I would love to see the rating scale that led them to be the bottom of this list, because I can assure you, 2.4 beers isn't scratching the surface.
No, absolutely not. I was also surprised that the Milwaukee Brewers were where they were. This is a stadium that once had Bernie Brewer, whose job was after a home run to slide down into a fake large pitcher of beer. It's the Brewers, for God's sakes. And yet they're, I think, 5? They're barely the top 10, tied with the Tigers and the Twins. Again, Drinking
Well, it could be
city.
that they're so beer centric that after a while they're just like, meh, it's just another beer.
Well, either that or
they could be immune to it.
Then the bottom five were the Cardinals. Again,
No.
shocking.
No.
Absolutely shocking. Then the Dodgers, the Giants, the A's, and you mentioned the Phillies. So the California teams really don't do well at all.
The Dodgers, there's a weight scale there, because if you've ever been to a game in LA, no one shows up before the third inning and no one stays after the sixth. So you're really talking about a 3-inning window there.
The biggest pregame drinkers, Toronto Blue Jays fans, then the Cardinals, then the White Sox are third. So they are the biggest pregame and during game drinkers. Now you see the Brewers make an appearance in the top 5. But again, still no Philly. And the biggest lightweight drinkers, fans most likely to have missed some of the game due to drinking too much, White Sox. They're rolling. They're the Michael Phelps of gold medalists when it comes to drinking in baseball, followed by the Red Rockies, Cleveland.
There's the Marlins in the middle of it. That's why they have that big shower in center field.
The Marlins. Ew.
They do.
The Marlins did go 5th. Yeah, that's right. I've heard of that. I'm okay. I'll go to my air-conditioned car. All right. 2 things. I know you've got to pop here in a couple of minutes, but I had a friend of mine, Mitch Rosenberg, on, who works for an auction house in Colorado, in the Boulder area, and we talked about how in the pandemic, one part of sports was not only immune to financial woes, but powering through them like Popeye through spinach, and that's the memorabilia and collectors. And you brought it to my attention that there have been some auctions there have been obscene.
Well, I don't know if you've been paying attention to 2020 and the trading card market. And it all started with The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. Mm-hmm. Once that hit, it started with Michael Jordan cards, and it's branched out to Tom Brady. It branched out to record sales of the Mike Trout jersey he wore in his debut game with the Angels. And this past weekend, Heritage Auctions actually had a weekend that they took in $30 million just from auctioning items. And the highlight of it, I don't know how many of these even exist, but a Honus Wagner card that was once owned by Joe Garagiola.
I know, that blew me away.
$2.5 million.
Yep. Yeah, Reggie Jackson card over $1 million. Dimitri Young, an old ball player, had that. A Wayne Gretzky jersey, $624. The Gretzky rookie card, $216,000. Jordan rookie card, $558,000. 1972, Jake Scott, the late Jake Scott now, $138,000 for his ring. Supposedly we're all suffering in this pandemic financially. At least some people are, but not these guys. I was, man.
What else is interesting is, the company that rates the cards, PSA, yeah, they have been paying full attention to what's going on. So over the last couple of weeks, they've decided to double their rate to rate a card. So it used to be $75 to have a card rated. Now it's $150 to have a card rated. And of course, the entire industry is like, this is a backbreaker. I can't afford to have this. And I go, well, you guys are the ones making $2.5 million for a card. So yeah, if you want to get it rated, you'll have to suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, it's almost like rising gas prices around Memorial Day or July 4th on our driving holidays. Everybody complains and everybody goes to the pump and fills up anyway because they have to.
Yep. I mean, if you want to play the game, you got to. So if someone changes the rules and you still want to play, you're tough.
Yeah, no, I get it. I don't know. My friend told me this around Thanksgiving. He was in town from Colorado visiting his cousin, who's also a friend of mine, and I was like, "Really?" I was wondering how they were doing, and it turns out quite nicely. All the memorabilia, the cards, bats, you name it. He was telling me about some Mickey Mantle stuff that's still out there that fetches huge dollars, even more than it normally does, because Mantle's a valued name, of course. Yeah,
let's save people some heartbreak, though, because right now everybody is going through their, anybody, let's say 40 and younger, who wasn't really into the hobby but kind of into it, are walking around going, oh my God, I have these baseball cards. They're going to be worth a fortune and everything else. If it's older than 1980, no one cares. Save yourself some time.
You think even if it's a rare card or an unusual card?
If you have that, then, there are always exceptions. But as a general rule, obviously, a Tom Brady rookie card went for some obscene money. The Mike Trouts are going to go for some obscene money. Those are your no-brainers. But if you have a box of just Topps cards from 1981 and you think everything in there is going to make you a millionaire, save yourself some trouble, weed down to the actual star. Those are maybe the 5 cards that are worth caring about. But for the most part, any card store will tell you if it's past 1980,
gone. Good put, Nick.
And that's when the other companies came in too. Because for the longest time it was Topps, and that was it. And then you have Upper Deck, and then you have Fleer, and then you have the Diamond, and then you have the foil editions, then you have the super duper rare gold-plated fireworks edition, and then those are the cars that end up being really, really valuable. But if you didn't have the foresight to buy those special editions, if you just said, well, I'm a Topps guy because that's what I had growing up, well, sorry about your luck.
And no gum either. These cards are a little too valuable to have powdered sugar or whatever the hell that substance was that tasted on my green apple gum in my cards. That's out.
If the gum is that important to you, just save yourself some time and buy yourself a packet of Big League Chew. It's the same stuff, and it's awesome, and it'll last you a couple of weeks. And you can pretend like you're chewing tobacco like a big boy.
And that was the whole point. The late Jim Bouton and his partner came up with that exact concept for that reason. And not that gum is bad, but gum is better than chewing tobacco. That's for damn sure.
Sure.
And I hope Jim and his estate are still making money off of that. Look, buddy, I know you got to run. I'm so appreciative of your time, and it's always a treat when we have a chance to chat, whether it's for 5 minutes or 25 minutes. And I'm so grateful.
Well, I'm glad to have the opportunity to pretend like I'm a little bit literate on sports. And what I hope sincerely is sometime in the next few months, we will have ample opportunity to talk about the awesome concert lineups that are finally coming out. There are a couple of bands who have already set up their fall tours, and fingers crossed that they're actually going to happen. And I'm already licking my chops and preparing my ear protection or whatever else, and making sure that because live music is life, and there's going to be a lot of great bands.
Yeah, I know. That conversation will be had, hopefully, maybe by the early part of the summer. So good luck with everything today, my friend. My best to Wendy and everybody, and we'll talk again for sure. And good night, Mr. Potato Head.
Good to see you again.
Thank you, buddy. Rob Wonderpants Calvert joining us, and he's got things to do and people to see, but I rarely get, sometimes I don't even book one guest. Rare is the opportunity to book a second guest. And my Lord, an internet celebrity has joined us straight away. And we just talked about the hardest drinking fans in baseball and what pops up at a man in a White Sox hat. Do you know they're like the Michael Phelps of hard drinking baseball fans? They're on the podium everywhere, every category.
They're on the podium for a variety of personal vices and questionable conduct. Why limit it to drinking, Dave?
Well, I remember going the last year of Comiskey. By the way, first off, for anybody, if you ever call it Kaminsky, please leave. That's number one. But yeah, I have a picture back when there were actually things called cameras where you would take it to your photomat of the rubble, because the next year I went to the new stadium. And by the way, I'm still finishing climbing the upper deck there. Should have that down any minute. But I understand. I completely understand. By the way, let me give this man a proper introduction. This is Ricky Cobb. Now, that name maybe doesn't jump, but if I mention Super 70s Sports, it jumps, because you've got 30 billion Twitter followers now by being a smartass, and thank God for that. It is a go. No, really, you're the only account, and I don't know how I found you a couple of years ago. Probably looking at Twitter, and somebody had retweeted one of your pictures and the commentary you write on it. And I thought it was freaking hilarious. You're like the only Twitter account I share with my friends.
I'm flattered, sir. It's been a weird midlife adventure. Pretty unexpected. I never intended to attempt to become a social media darling or anything like that, so it's you look up and you find yourself. I turned 50 this year, and my life is a lot different going into the 5-0 than I would have anticipated if you talked to me 5 or 6 years ago. I couldn't have seen this coming, and who knew being a smartass would actually be profitable at some point. I knew if I stuck with it long enough, maybe there was a shot. In high school, it didn't really, do me that many favors.
So I'm 10 years older than you. So I actually have some recollections of the 60s, but the 70s and the 80s were my periods of growth, allegedly. So when you have found, and I don't know how much time or where you start digging these up, but you find the damnedest pictures of well-known athletes from the 70s, even 60s and 80s when it's appropriate. And then you come up with these snarky captions for it. What inspired you to take this public?
Well, the origin of the site, I've got to give a hat tip to my buddy Dan Epstein. About 10 years ago, Dan published a book called Big Hair and Plastic Grass. And as part of his promotion for that book, he created a Facebook page where on a daily basis, he would post a few nuggets, gems, I would say, of 70s baseball goodness. He would throw up a Gary Maddox baseball card one day, and then the next day it's Dave Parker, and the day after that it's Bill Madlock. And I found myself really looking forward to what Dan was posting on Facebook every day, and it was sort of bringing my childhood back to me in a way that made it seem like it was relevant again. Like what star of yesteryear is going to pop up on my Facebook tomorrow, courtesy of Dan. And I was on Christmas break. I'm a college professor by day, and I was on Christmas break with some downtime to kill. And I thought to myself, well, what if I could take what Dan is doing and just apply it to all sports in the 70s rather than just 70s baseball? And of course, the short version of a long story is that over time, I began to expand into pop culture, music, TV, movies, just the aesthetics of the 70s, shag carpeting, the station wagons, the avocado green appliances, just sort of
the catalog pictures, dude. Oh yeah. My God, the catalog pictures you dig up. And for those who may have missed the 70s, Super 70 Sports, you come up with the Sears catalog or the JCPenney catalog photos of the fashion of that era. And it reminds me that this was at one point something I actually attained to look like as a teenager. And I can't believe that I wanted to look like that or that anybody did.
We all did. That's what you were supposed to look like, a good mustache and some nice thick sideburns.
Collars out to here.
A leisure suit with, way too many pockets. A lot of polyester, polyester was the currency. Back in the old days of the explorers, it was spices and things like that. The currency of the 70s was polyester and nicotine. And, that was the world we lived in. And, shout out to all the folks who did the Sears Wish Book and the JCPenney catalog, because those executives, I imagine that they were Don Draper types, those executives that were putting those catalogs together, boy, they did me a good service, because I came along 40 years later and they just teed me up.
Yeah, you do. Where do you find your photos? I mean, is it something where you have a specific idea? I want to write today about, say, George Brett, and you go, okay, now I'm going to find some George Brett stuff, or is it just that you start looking and it comes to you that way?
It can go either way. It's almost like songwriting. They'll say, what comes first, the lyrics or the music? Sometimes I'll have an idea and then I just need to go find the photo to accompany the idea. But I would say probably more than not, it is a matter of looking around for interesting prompts, because that's really what the photos are for me. They're prompts for me to be silly. They're prompts for me to make some sort of social observation or whatever. And so I just go looking for the photos mostly. And, fortunately for me now, the more prominent the account has become, I've got a lot of people out there that I've carved out this weird little place for myself in life where people see really, really weird, effed up stuff and they think of me. So I'll get these emails where somebody sends me like the oddest, most disturbing photo of some 70s nonsense. And they'll say, I saw this and I thought of you. And I always wonder if that's really a compliment or not. But I appreciate it when people, throw something in my lap that I can work with, because it is a lot of work to dig through and sift through, all the crap on the internet to try to find the good stuff that people may have not seen before.
Well, sadly, I have your email now, so don't be surprised from an elderly man's account that you're going to get it. I'm going to try something I've never done here, because as you can tell, this is an extraordinarily low-budget program. I'm going to try to put up one of your tweets from earlier today on the screen. So you're going to have to tell me I don't even know if we'll be able to see it, but you have been on a Harry Carey run lately, and I loved Harry Carey because there's so much to make fun of there. And I'm going to try this and see if it showed up at all. But it's one from earlier today of Harry Carey and then Ronald Reagan. And Harry looking as hairy as you can do. And you write, obviously Reagan, I'm going to destroy the Soviet Union. And Harry says, I'm going to destroy some names and a case of Budweiser. So I hope that people had a chance to see that. And I'm going to go back to the two of us. I've never put anything up there before. I'm deathly afraid of like frying my home electricity system if I did something like that. You ever felt like you've gone too far? Is there a moment you're like, oh wow, even though that person is probably dead, I might have been a little mean there? Or do you have any regrets when you send one of these out?
Other people sometimes think I go too far, but that happens a lot. That happens a lot more than me thinking it. To be honest with you, I mean, occasionally, it's really a wonder in some respects. One of the most frequent questions I get is, have you ever pissed somebody off? Has there ever been an athlete or a celebrity who's, chewed you out because of something that you've tweeted about them, and it's never happened? I mean, that means it'll probably happen today at about 3:30 in the afternoon. Those are famous last words. But even if somebody did get their feelings hurt, all I could really do is offer an apology, unless it's OJ, in which case, screw you, OJ, and you shouldn't be vaccinated either, you murderer. But most of it is done with most of it's done tongue in cheek, unless I'm, some people richly deserve it, and I do get a little bit of a joy out of needling OJ, but right. Most of it's done, with a wink and a nod, and even if it's sprinkled with profanity and whatever. Generally speaking, I'm an equal opportunity smartass, if nothing else, right? I'm going to cycle through every team, every sport, every facet of life. Nobody's fair game. And I'm a self-deprecating cat anyway. I look like a homeless man who's, going to leave this.
The beard, you went through a beard phase a couple of months ago that did concern me. I even made a couple of remarks to you like, dude, you need a nicer refrigerator box or something? I didn't know what the hell was going on. So. Well,
this is actually, under control compared to what I was last year. Well, during the pandemic, it was like there was very little to do. I've been, bubbling, with some seriousness. And so to pass the time, I just decided, rather than trying to have my wife cut my hair or whatever, I'll just go biblical and let's see what happens. And It got a little Tom Hanks Castaway.
Yes, it did.
It did. You can confirm, Dave. And
I will.
So by last December, I finally decided, okay, this is, a bird flew out of the beard one day, and I realized that was the point at which probably time to get the scissors out.
Yeah, but, I think that was a wise idea. You mentioned OJ is maybe not your favorite guy. Are there one or two others that will face the maybe a little sharper needle than OJ, along with OJ Simpson?
Oh, Skip Bayless is one that if I don't go out of my way to zing Skip Bayless, but if it comes up, he just signed this $32 million renewal with Fox, and I tweeted yesterday that, according to my math, that works out to almost 5 cents for every person who thinks he sucks. And that got a pretty good response because, the funniest things usually are funny because there's at least some truth in it, right?
Yep.
And the Harry Carey tweet, I'm going to destroy some names and some Budweiser. Well, that's what Harry did. And if you remember watching those games, it's true. And so, there are a few people that I might kind of enjoy it when I zing them. But, honestly, most of the people that I joke about, I actually admire and I'm a fan of. It's all in the spirit of getting a laugh, and most of it veers towards the absurd anyway.
I would strongly suggest, you talk about people I am certain you have an affection for. I have 2 tweets that I'm thinking of. Well, your all-timers, one with Cosell, Bruce Jenner, and O.J. Simpson. One of the things starts this is, I have seen the future, and you're not going to believe this shit. I believe is roughly how it went. And I need to, because I'm deathly afraid of blowing up the house, I'm not going to find it and put it up there, but you'll need to find that one. The other one that I don't know if you got enough credit for was goofy. You've had some goofy pictures of Larry Bird, and you must love the guy. And I so do I. I had a chance to see him play in person, although it was near the end of his career when his heels were bad. But you had the one where, like a Christmas one, where you're talking about he's going to come down the chimney, drink your dad's beer, all this other stuff, throw 3 in your face and go, ha, Merry Christmas to that, or something like that. And I thought, you know what? I believe that. I mean, that was Bird. And you've done a great job for the people who miss Larry and people who don't understand what a genius this guy was at playing the game and what a player he was. You've done a beautiful job in your own humorous way of telling people the Larry Bird story.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Larry is a prominent character, and that's kind of how I look at it sometimes. My timeline is sort of a place. It doesn't have a geographic location, but when you go there, I like to look at it as just this absurd little town or village where all of these characters from our past are alive and doing funny things. And, Larry has become a character that I've gotten a lot of mileage out of. And, as time goes by, I think Bird's stature just rises more and more and more because, not to go racial here, but when was the last time that the United States produced an MVP caliber white guy in the NBA? And you really think about it, there's a lot of good white players in the NBA now, but they're foreign.
They're European. Yeah.
To a man, really, there are
right. Luka, yeah.
Love, Kevin Love and Gordon Hayward they might be the 2 best American-born white guys in the NBA if you really think about it. So Larry, stands out more and more, and especially just the way that he looked, because he just, God bless him, but like myself, he's just a common-looking guy.
God bless him. He tries hard is the expression I would think of.
Yeah. Larry looked like I did a tweet, I don't know, last week where I said, stop for a moment and appreciate the fact that this guy was the best player in the NBA while looking like if he had 7 brothers, he would have been the shitty one.
Well, you had the one of him leaning out the truck, was it? And it was like some old shot of him, his elbow on a pickup truck as he's behind the wheel. And you said, it's like, you're not going to believe this, but this is the best player in the NBA or something like that.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Like Tom Brady, well, he's the best player in the NFL, all time, arguably. The guy's, looks like a movie star. For some reason, he doesn't age to the point that we probably should investigate. He's married to a supermodel, but this cat was from French Lick, Indiana. Yep. Basically just, walked off the IU campus to go play at Indiana State, looks like a yokel, let's face it, and was just a stone cold assassin, and I love everything that he represents. Trash talker, Larry Bird embodies something more than basketball, I think. And I think that's why so many people, I think that's why he resonates so much.
The all-time trash talk king, in my opinion, the all-time. And there's plenty of it still going on today. but you listen to the stories of the guys who had to endure it and what he did to them and he would back up what he would talk. And people always not always, but the subject comes up and I'll nominate Larry Bird. Then I think I'm going to walk away as a winner here.
Oh yeah. My favorite's probably, when he walked into the 3-point shootout and said, which one of you MFers is coming in second?
Yep.
That's a certain amount of confidence. And then goes out and wins it without taking off his warm-up jacket.
Right. And that's the one where he finished by putting his last shot and he puts the number one finger up and starts to walk away as the ball is going in the net, because he knew, much like like Tiger would twirl a club when he knew that he had hit a good drive, or or start walking after an approach because this is going to be just fine. It's the same confidence. Yeah, It's the generations past. You've also done some great stuff with Julius Erving and Magic and all these guys. I hope that basketball fans remember, and you're doing a nice job of bringing that stuff back. You've also done some. Give me the genesis of that tweet, because the biggest was the O.J. Cosell and Bruce Jenner back when Bruce Jenner was just coming out of the Olympics, is one of the biggest. That's the other thing people need to remember. Caitlyn Jenner is a well-known name, but to go backwards a little bit, not to be disrespectful to Caitlyn Jenner, but to mention that there was another person in this life named Bruce Jenner who won an Olympic gold medal. He was as popular coming out of those Olympics as any athlete of his era.
One of the most admired athletic figures in America, as was OJ for that matter. But, Jenner was on the Wheaties box and was on, and, in the 70s, as you know, there were all kinds of crappy variety specials where they would just throw together 10 or 15 or 20 celebrities, and there'd be some song and dance and some bad skits, and we would have a show. And, Bruce always turned up on those in the 70s. And Bruce Jenner was an icon. And, I certainly respect Bruce's identity as Caitlyn, but it's hard when you grow up and Bruce Jenner is such a big part of your life as a kid, because I was born in 71 and he won the decathlon in 76. So it was a big deal. And so, I think that tweet with those two and Howard, I think partly it was successful because it was easy to imagine Howard saying that.
Yes.
But I think it was mostly successful because, wow, what odds could you have gotten on flash forward 40 years and one of them is a woman and the other one is a murderer? And so it sold itself. I think the caption helped, obviously, but when somebody sent me that photo, it was a screenshot from the Battle of the Stars. And someone sent me the photo. And sometimes, the jokes come to you immediately. Some of my tweets, I spent 3 seconds on them. Other tweets, you write it. That's not quite it. You rewrite it. I'm not entirely satisfied with that. Sometimes you put them away and you think there's something there, but it's not going to come to me today. So I'll check it out later. I'll go back to it and maybe it'll come to me next week or something. And that tweet, even though it seems like it would have been a slam dunk, I guess, that was in my phone for probably a couple of weeks because, when I got it, I knew it was special. I knew the material was special. And when you have a photo or a video, I work primarily with photos. And when you have a photo that is A+++ material, you don't want to give it a C+ caption because you're wasting the opportunity. And so I kept it on my phone for a couple of weeks. And then a couple of weeks later, looking through my stuff, saw it, captioned it, had absolutely no idea that this was going to be the one that, went around the world 10 times and, got viral. But very, very quickly, I knew. I mean, the minute I sent it, it was just alerts on my phone constantly. And, people probably somebody sends you an email and says Howard Stern was talking about it today on his radio show. And so it escaped the Twitter sphere and, got out there in the world. And, you still see the memes circulating, paraphrased in some cases and whatever. Once you do something that popular, it kind of belongs to the world, you know. So that meme is one that probably millions of people have seen, and of course I'm proud of it. It advanced. That was in 2017,
Right.
and you know it advanced Super 70s sports. You know, it hasn't been an overnight thing. I've been at it for about 6.5 years now. So there are milestones though that you look back on when you think about, okay, well, how did I get here with over 400,000 followers? And, you know, if I had to highlight 3 or 4 or 5 different moments that I feel, you know, move things forward, that would definitely be one of the top ones.
You know, there's 2 things that I noticed, and you very quickly will clap back at people. And by the way, good for you. When you ever go outside the 70s, for some reason, there's a group of people who feel like you must always color in the lines and you're not allowed to go outside the page. And the other time, sometimes people will clap at you for language. So when the language, at times you will curse in your tweets, other times you will not. When do you decide that it's time to drop a few well-chosen curse words, and when do you decide, I'm going to, you know, be Jay Leno on this one and be clean?
I don't even look at it that way. I just say what comes to my mind, and if curse words are a part of it, they go in it, and if curse words aren't a part of it, they don't go in it. You know, I don't know what your standards are for this broadcast, so I'm trying to watch myself. You'll notice I said MFer earlier because I'm trying to be respectful of your show, but it's very organic. When I'm tweeting, I wouldn't be as respectful if you and I were just, you know, throwing back a couple of beers and we weren't taking it.
I wouldn't expect you to be. And I know the people that we'd be drinking with. And they're not respectful people either, because we have some common friends. So, yes, I know those people well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know, I try to tweet like I think and like I talk. Obviously, you know, any of us with common sense are going to modulate our vocabulary to the situation that we're in if we have self-awareness. But, you know, the nice thing about, you know, I don't work for a major media outlet, right? I'm doing my own thing. So the only person I really have to please in terms of the standards I set is myself. And but I never curse for the sake of cursing. Mm-hmm. I basically just say what comes to mind. And I've actually gone back and looked at it because people sometimes, I've gotten earnest emails before from people who've said, you know, really, I enjoy your feed and I'd like to share it with my kids or whatever, but, you know, you curse so much. Have you ever thought about, you know, you don't need to do it or whatever, you know? And it's like, of course I don't need to do it, but that's how I speak. That's how I think. And, you know, obviously I think it works, but if people don't like it, I respect that. But the only people that bug me are the ones who feel like they have a right to tell me what I can and can't do. And so that's that usually when I clap back, it's when somebody tells me, you know, stick to sports, or that's not the 70s, or, you know, whatever. And it's like, well, you know, the name is what it is. And when I named this, you got to realize I had absolutely zero idea whatsoever that this was going to turn into a thing. I thought I was just doing something that, you know, some of those mutual friends that we have that you just mentioned might enjoy. They might share it with, you know, guys like you and whatever. And I thought I might have, you know, a few hundred or maybe even a few thousand people looking at it, but certainly nothing more than that. And, you know, maybe I would have given it a different name, because it is true. I don't just trade in the 70s and I don't just trade in sports, but I tell people that that's the backbone. You know, if you follow the feed for 2 or 3 days or a week, you'll find that the 70s is foundational. I'm going to go there every day more than once.
Yep.
And I'm going to stay on sports. And as far as the profanity goes, I've actually gone back and looked into this because it's made me curious. How much do I actually curse? And according to my best informal, you know, back of the envelope math, I curse in about 30% of the time.
Oh, okay.
Which less, I think, probably than my reputation.
Another thing you've locked in on that I really admire you for, and I'm a Hogan's Heroes guy, which is the 60s. So I watch Richard Dawson on Hogan's Heroes all the time. I think as anybody is emblematic of the 70s lifestyle, when he was doing game shows, first as a panelist on Match Game, and I can only imagine that environment. And then when he really got big, when he took over Family Feud. But as far as a personality that's not a sports person that embodies that era, I don't know if you can do any better than Richard Dawson. He had to have the best life on earth.
Richard Dawson lived in my opinion, the coolest time period in, modern American history. And he was always the coolest guy in the room. That's a hard thing to pull off. You could put Richard Dawson in a room with Elvis and Tom Jones and, Muhammad Ali and whatever. And I don't know that Richard Dawson still isn't the coolest guy on some level in that room. And so I actually have an autographed, personalized autographed photo from Richard Dawson on my office wall. Yeah, it's almost like one of those. It's almost like one of those collegiate football superstitions where I touch it on the wall before I go out and start my day. I don't actually, but I could. That's the spirit. It fills my heart with, because I feel like if I could get even about 3% of Richard Dawson swagger going at the start of a day, hey, that's all I need,
Yeah, I can only, he lived it, man. He lived that life that we look at, and it wasn't the healthiest lifestyle on earth, but it was the coolest. He was like a one-man rat pack. And, it was just, I loved the guy, and I don't know how, and the stuff he does now, kissing contestants, I realize all that is inappropriate, and things have changed over the years. But guy.
Don't you just want to live in a world where a guy can come out like 3 sheets to the wind and then just start lip kissing other men's wives right in front of them while they just stand there like an idiot and then make a bunch of dumb guesses on the show and get red buzzers under their face. He cuckolded a lot of men right there on primetime television back in the day. But yeah, the guy hit some stones. Right. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you had one yesterday, and I put it up on Facebook. I know you saw it to promote the show. I'm also guessing you're a big Wayne Gretzky fan because you poke fun at him about once a week and his youthful appearance. He does, and for years, and he still looks young now, and he's obviously not. But when he was 19, he looked like he was 12, and yet at 19, 20 years old, he was arguably the most dominant athlete in team sports in the world.
He is arguably the greatest athlete in the history of team sports, if you really look at what he accomplished. So I get a lot of mileage from Gretzky, and I grew up in Kentucky, so I really wasn't a big hockey fan, but Gretzky's one of those guys who just transcended his sport because he was doing so many amazing things that even as a kid growing up in Kentucky who had very little, I didn't have a handle on hockey really.
Sure.
You're just thinking, well, my God, what he's doing is absurd. And, I get a lot of mileage from just Gretzky facts, but, then you also get mileage out of the fact that he's doing it while looking like a 17-year-old girl who's, getting ready to go to prom. He was waif-like, the kid was so skinny. And, I get a lot of mileage out of the fact that he resembles Princess Diana a little bit in his youth. So that's a connection that people get, whatever. So, I tease Gretzky, but when you're maybe the greatest athlete in the history of team sports and you're married to Janet Jones and you're winning so hard at life, you can probably shake off some Twitter smartass, saying that, you looked like a girl when you were 23, You
know what? He can probably handle it. And the other, you think about it, and in his decade, not only was he breaking records, not just breaking them, but destroying them, he was also winning championships. So all the things that we as sports fans demand from, well, this guy's not the greatest because he doesn't have a ring, he checked off every single one of those and blew everybody out of the water with that. And hardly anybody in team sports could ever make that claim. And by the way, props and as you would say, a super sky point to Wayne's father, who just passed the other day at 82, a very important person in Wayne Gretzky's life. But you know what? He can take it. He's a big boy now.
He can take it. I mean, but I like Gretzky falls into that category again. He's a guy that I like, so it's one of those things with rare exception. When I'm teasing somebody, I'm teasing people that I like. And if Wayne Gretzky, if I were relevant enough, for Wayne Gretzky to tease me back, I'd be honored,
Well, the other thing you've done over the years is picked out certain athletes that I remember. You're a Moses Malone guy. I remember Moses. I remember living in the state of Virginia when Maryland was trying to recruit him. And that whole story of all of the rules that were destroyed. If he had spent 1/10 of a second in a Terrapins uniform, Maryland's basketball program would probably not even exist anymore. And obviously we know he went pro and ends up having this staggering career as one of the, and kind of forgotten, which is sad, but he was, as you would say, a badass. And you find these guys and you go, and sometimes you remind me like, oh yeah, that guy was great. I'm glad you made fun of him because it brought him back to me.
Yeah. There are some guys that for whatever reason, history, they fall through the cracks a little bit. And Moses is, certainly guys like you and I remember him, but Moses isn't talked about nearly enough. There are some guys from that era that get talked about a ton. I mean, you look at Joe Namath, right? Joe Namath is another, thank you, Joe, for everything that you've ever done, because I'm going to be tweeting about Joe Namath for as long as there is a Super 70s account.
Speaking of
there's a tremendous amount of material, but Joe, and I love Joe Namath, and I respect Joe Namath, but having said that, Joe Namath's, his reputation to how good he actually was is skewed a bit, right? If they don't win Super Bowl III, Joe Namath probably isn't in the Hall of Fame.
Agreed.
And Moses, obviously he won the title in Philly, and he had a tremendous career. I mean, that guy was every bit as good as Jabbar in the 80s. And for whatever reason, we kind of just don't talk about him. So I do think, on a serious note, that sometimes I think I'm trying to put my thumb on the scale just a little bit with the Twitter account to the extent that it has any impact, to just kind of remind people sometimes, hey, let's not forget about this guy, because nobody seems to be talking about him. But think about how good Moses Malone was, because that guy was good for about 30 and 13 every night. And we shouldn't forget that. Plus he was just the coolest dude. I think it was Robert Klein, the comedian. I saw him years ago. I think it was him. I'm going to give him credit for it, on David Letterman, and he said that Moses Malone was the only guy he knew who could use mama as a verb. I thought that's tremendous, So there's nothing not to like about Moses Malone, as far as I'm concerned. And if I can contribute a little bit to keeping the memory of some of these guys alive on social media, then that's a nice little thing that makes me feel good that maybe I'm contributing something.
Well, you have become a national treasure, and like other national treasures, there's a gift shop at the end of the tour. I know you have a way for folks to wear their nostalgia, and take a second to tell people how they can do that.
Yeah, thank you. It's super70sportsstore.com. We've got, a deep inventory of t-shirts and lots of pop culture and sports stuff. A lot of it from the 70s and 80s, but some of it more contemporary. I'd like to thank anybody who is kindred spirits to the two of us, and anybody who enjoys the kinds of things that we've been talking about today. If they've never been to the Super 70 Sports Store, check it out, and I'm very proud of it. And I think that you'll probably find some stuff there that will make you do a double take. And I'm not saying for sure that you're going to buy something, but I guarantee you I'm going to create a lot of temptation.
Well, I appreciated your NASL collection, having had the NASL down here and having been involved in, sort of with the Strikers for a few years before that all went away. Those are the ones of, oh yeah, I remember that. And I hated the Cosmos, even though they had Pelé and Canelli and all those guys. They always got in the way. Spoiled our fun. Listen, dude, I'm so happy we had the chance to talk. The next time I really hope it's face-to-face with our buddies at a tavern someplace and just destroying everybody we know by insulting them dearly. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for inviting me on. And I hope the next time is in person too. But I also hope that we have a next time doing this, because this is
absolutely. I appreciate that, Ricky. Thank you so much. Ricky Cobb from Super 70 Sports. And that will have to do it for today, as I have, I feel like the late Gordon Soley here. We've gone over television time, and we have to restore order. Plus, my phone is ringing, and I have no idea if people can hear that or not. But again, for Ricky Cobb, for Rob Calvert, I'm Dave LaMont. Enjoy your weekend. That's been your Nooner. I'll see you next time.